Okay, so I finally got to see Anora in the theater the other day, and I tried to do an out of the theater reaction, but I didn't feel like my thoughts really came across properly. And I felt like I maybe needed more context to discuss the film in the way I wanted, because the thing was, this was my first Sean Baker film. So I scrapped that, and then I went and watched two other Sean Baker films. I've now watched The Florida Project and Red Rocket, to try to give myself the kind of context I wanted to talk about this film. I'll definitely probably go back and watch the rest of his films, but I didn't really want to put this off forever, so here we are now. After having done that, I think my main thought is that this film is very much different stylistically from those two films, and it may not necessarily have been Sean Baker's intent, but I feel like it is very much more a film that's structured to at least be capable of being a more mainstream film. And so what I mean about that is that things like The Florida Project or Red Rocket are sort of unconcerned with an overarching story, or like trying to present the characters as if they are characters in a film. It really just introduces you to the characters, and you are just getting like a snapshot of their life. Like, you're very much just seeing their life and seeing some things that happen along the way, but it's nothing, again, that really fits into like an overarching story. And that's not bad. I very much like those films. I feel like they're good at doing what they're trying to do. And what that sort of approach does is it enables you to sort of view a lot of characters from a more empathetic lens at times. It never really tries to tell you that characters are good, but it never outright tells you they're bad. And again, just seeing the way they live and seeing how they end up in certain situations, or seeing how like they may have certain ideas or certain thoughts, is just very much different from just seeing some crazy thing going on and just having it happen, and you don't really know how that character got there, you know? So again, it's that approach is pretty good. It doesn't really try to moralize anything. You don't really get any other backstory for these characters beyond like just seeing where they're at. Like, again, this one was very much just concerned with the here and now in their lives. It's not trying to be like, oh, well, they're like this because this happened. Again, you don't get those kind of explanations. But they're very much unneeded because, again, this film isn't trying to convince you in a way that that certain people are good or bad. It's just, this is where they are, this is what's going on. And again, you're just able to view them in a much different way than you can view characters in a lot of films. Because you're just seeing them that way. So then you get to Anora, and Anora, where I say it feels like it's made to be a more mainstream film, is that it definitely has an overarching story that is definitely more present in Anora, and you don't really, there's sort of like a mix here between like feeling like you're seeing a snapshot of the characters' lives, because you sort of are, but again, it's glamorized and made to feel a little bit more like just a section of their life that is in a film. Like, everything going on is a little bit more bombastic, a little bit more crazy, a little bit more out of the ordinary. So it doesn't quite feel like you're just seeing people's lives in this film in the same way. There are parts of the film that sort of go back to that. There's definitely sections that feel very much more like those films. But there's good chunks of the movie that just are not quite like that. The way the film is kind of structured, it starts, and in the first act, you've definitely got the raunchiest act of the film there. And I think this is done to sort of make sure that by the time things get rolling, you are comfortable with what the film is. Like, it's been established, you know sort of what things you can expect from it. And it's definitely not my favorite act of the film. It's, for about the first 45 minutes, it doesn't really grab me in the way the rest of the film does. Now, it wasn't bad. It certainly a first act I can sit through easily. But again, it definitely is very much just setup. And so you get to the second act, again, after like 45, 50 minutes in. And that act kind of transitions into being sort of like a 30s or 40s screwball comedy. And it kind of makes me think of like Coen brother films, and then maybe mix them in with the anxiety of a film like Uncut Gems, because it's very much just a fast-paced, anxiety-driven section of the film that's also feels like a screwball comedy or like a Coen brothers film because of just how well every character in that section of the film plays off of each other. If I had to give this film just one award, it would probably be Best Ensemble. I do think it should win some other awards. I do think it has a shot at Best Picture. But again, just the way every character plays off of each other in this film is so good that so far, I think this is probably my pick for Best Ensemble. So again, that section of the film is really fun. But again, it's very much concerned with like how the plot is progressing. So it doesn't really feel quite like those other films where you're just seeing people's lives. Like, it feels like you're definitely focusing on this specific thing and not just any given part of their life. So that's sort of the section of the film where it differs the most. And then you get through that and you get to the third act and you're approaching the end. And I feel like, again, the comedy definitely ramps up going into and through that second act. And you get to the third act, and I think the film didn't really want to end on that note. So it maintains that comedy for a little while, but it's slowly drawing it back. And so, drawing it back, you get near the end, it becomes very much a more serious film, and I think this is the part of the film where you have the moments that are the most similar to his other films. Especially the ending in particular. I feel like the ending definitely works to capture some of the things he does in his other films. I really like the ending. I think if I was like ranking the endings of those three films I've seen, Anora would probably be my favorite, followed pretty closely by The Florida Project, and then Red Rocket. Like, I can't say I don't like the ending, but it's definitely, out of those three, the bottom in a ranking. Yeah, so again, I'm not sure how I'd rank those three films right off the top of my head. I just watched those other two kind of recently, and I'll probably give Anora a rewatch. But if we were just ranking the endings, I think Anora has the strongest ending. So yeah, I think that's really just what I wanted to say, and now I was able to get it across.